As we meet here, Israel's genocide in Gaza continues. Israel's attacks on the West Bank continue. And now Israel's bombardment of Lebanon continues, and Israeli leaders are openly discussing a land invasion. Israel is committing war crimes every day. That state is in flagrant violation of international law, just as they have been not for a year, but for several decades. Today we are on the brink of a global humanitarian and security catastrophe. Every time we think things cannot get any worse, Israel proves us wrong. And why is this? How could it be that a state that enjoys the most preferential trading, economic and diplomatic relationship with the Western world would be in a position to literally brag about consigning the international rule book to the dustbin of history? The answer is, of course, that the Israeli forces murder innocent Palestinian and now Lebanese people at will because they believe they can do so with impunity. That is because they have never faced a consequence for their actions. Taoiseach, the Irish people have long believed that Israel should face consequences. They recall how measures taken by Ireland helped, even in a small way, to bring an end to South African apartheid. And for years they have been demanding that we do the same in respect of Israeli apartheid in Palestine. One of the things that we can do, in fact one of the things that we should have done years ago, is enact the Occupied Territories Bill. The bill isn't controversial, or at least it shouldn't be. It simply bans trade with and economic support for illegal settlements in territories deemed occupied under international law. Your party supported this when you were in opposition. Not only supported it, you ran a roadshow in towns and cities across Ireland setting out its importance. Fine Gael, on the other hand, as we know, opposed the passage of the Occupied Territories Bill every step of the way. But despite this, the legislation was adopted by both the Dáil and the Seanad, but Fine Gael governments have blocked the enactment of it. Upon entering government, Fianna Fáil and the Green Party, it has to be said, have allowed Fine Gael to continue blocking this legislation. And we've heard the excuses as to why the bill hasn't been enacted. But reporting from the Ditch website suggests that following a confidential and unrecorded call with Minister Paschal O'Donoghue, Israeli officials were in little doubt that the bill would be blocked by the Fine Gael government. We're told that Israeli officials emphasised that this was a confidential call, and that chimes, of course, with Minister O'Donoghue's own failure to record it in his ministerial diary and your contention that the minister cannot recall the conversation. Can Corla Cahimed Jli Irdanashanta Akasant. Cahimed an déanacht a chasant. Cahi Israel a bheith freigrach as na ruddy a dhéanaan siad. While Taoiseach, your language has welcomely changed over the past year, moving on from a point where you wouldn't even condemn Israel by name to finally moving on the recognition of Palestine, the truth is that your government cannot point to a single sanction that Ireland has imposed on the Israeli state for their actions. So in that context, I have to ask you, do you agree that Minister Paschal O'Donoghue, indeed all ministers, should set out clearly the detail of any engagements they've had with their Israeli counterparts or officials? But above all, do you agree that it is now time that the Irish government take action against an Israeli state that has been in grievous breach of international law for decades and that is currently conducting a genocide against the Irish people? So will you commit today to enacting the Occupied Territories Bill, to allowing the passage of Sinn Féin's illegal Israeli settlements divestment bill, and take other measures to ensure that Ireland can clearly state that here at least there are consequences for a powerful state that embarks on a cowardly, depraved attacks against civilian populations?
Thank you, Deputy Carthy. Taoiseach.
First of all, I thank the Deputy for raising this extremely important issue. The carnage, the slaughter of innocent children, women and men across the Middle East is to be condemned, and I've condemned it consistently. The action of Hamas on October the 7th was horrific, was heinous, but the Israeli response to that murderous attack by Hamas has been absolutely disproportionate, has resulted in the levelling of Gaza, near famine conditions in Gaza, and the killing of over 40,000 people, which in my view is reprehensible. And likewise, I have condemned the escalation into Lebanon, where the intensity of that bombardment is such that, again, innocent men, women and children are being killed. At every international forum, and again this week in New York, just back from New York, I've focused particularly on the Middle East question, attending the International Peace Institute dinner on Monday evening with all of the Arab partners and other interested partners in respect of endeavouring to get the Middle East on a pathway to a two-state solution and a resolution of this. And I met yesterday with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority. He was very grateful to Ireland and very appreciative of Ireland's consistent stance in support of international humanitarian law and in support of the Palestinian right to self-determination. I met with the Jordanian Foreign Minister yesterday. Again, he reiterated, which he has done on numerous occasions, his appreciation for Ireland standing up for Palestinian self-determination and for a two-state solution. And similarly with the Egyptian Foreign Minister yesterday also. And what I would say to you, Deputy, just generally, I've noticed a tendency on your behalf to sort of create a division or almost to suggest that the government is not, the government parties are not fully committed to either the two-state solution, to Palestinian self-determination, or to calling out blatant violations of international humanitarian law. Because the view outside of Ireland is that Ireland has been one of the leading countries in actually standing up for what is right. That is the view externally. And I think it's regrettable that at times you have sought to sow the seeds of division or almost drive a wedge or almost create a political sort of advantageous sort of positioning on this issue vis-à-vis government parties. The issue is far too serious for that. In respect of the, I would make the point, and one significant development I think in the last number of months has been the conclusions of the International Court of Justice in respect of its advisory opinion on the occupation of Palestinian territories. And that is a very serious conclusion by the court. Now remember, Ireland supported the resolution that led to that advisory opinion. The Attorney General made submissions on behalf of the country in respect of that. And during yesterday's discussions with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, the debate focused on how we can use that finding, that advisory opinion in respect of the illegality of the occupation and the fact that member states and those who've signed up to the ICJ, because this is the very apex of international humanitarian law and observations, that how do we now progress that? And we focused on the programme of, on a timeline to seeing what we can do on that. Ireland, as you know, wrote to the European Commission calling for a review of the EU-Israel Association Agreement with Spain. The Giuseppe Borrell, the high-level representative, has now sought legal advice on the ICJ opinion. In respect of Minister Paschal O'Donoghue, I've spoken to him before I came in this morning. He is clear that he did not make any such phone call.
Thank you.
And there is no, and his published diary doesn't record any such phone call. And I think it speaks to people rushing to judgment before ascertaining the full facts. He is very, very clear, Deputy.
Time is up,
and I think you should perhaps withdraw the assertions in your earlier public statements in that regard.
Deputy Carthy.
Well, my assertions amounted to a request that all government ministers clarify the full interactions that they have had with Israeli government ministers and state officials, and you didn't answer whether or not that would be forthcoming. You set out very clearly and rightly the realities of Israeli actions in both Palestine and Lebanon, but you didn't set out any consequences for those actions. I have no doubt that there are many within the international community that are very grateful for the positions that Ireland has taken. In fact, I'm very glad that Ireland speaks out against what is a grievous record of atrocious atrocities on the part of the Israeli state against the Israeli people. But I make no apologies for saying we must go further. There has to be consequences, because the reason Israel continues to do what it is doing is because it has faced not a single consequence for the unrelented and unmitigated murder of children, women and innocent men across many, many years. So my question was, will you, as a leader of a party that ran public meetings up and down this state encouraging support for the enactment of the Occupied Territories Bill, now that you're in the position ensure that your government do that now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, when countless more innocent people will have been killed, but now.
Thank you. Taoiseach, please.
Again, Ireland, along with Spain, were the first two more recent European Union member states to recognise the state of Palestine. Slovenia has now followed on the recognition question. Norway also, as you know, did that. We were, I think, central to turning around the narrative in relation to UNRWA at the European Union, within the European Union, and stopping the denial of aid and vital aid into UNRWA, and likewise in terms of aid and support from the Commission to the Palestinian Authority, which should have been far more frequent and shouldn't have been subjected to stop-start as it was. On the legal front, we have pursued all avenues of justice, which does challenge Israel in respect of international humanitarian law, and it's something that they do take our umbrage at. And have taken particular umbrage at Ireland's positioning before the ICJ, before the ICC, and in respect of the recognition questions and our general stance overall. The legal advice that the previous Attorney Generals gave in respect of the Occupied Territories Bill was that it was contrary to European Union law in respect of the conduct of trade. Now there is further advice being sought in respect of that, but also in the context of the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, which, as I say, has been sought by our government, but also at European Union level in respect. What are the obligations on EU member states in respect of the ICJ's advisory opinion? I think it's a very significant turning point, and Europe has to face up to that reality.